I, 45 female, am the oldest daughter of my dad's first marriage. My youngest siblings are R, 44 male, G, 42 female, and B, 40 male. When I was 19, Dad dumped Mom for his mistress, went full no contact because he wanted a fresh start, no strings attached, and left us penniless since Mom didn't have a job. Dad forced her to quit, and neither my or my siblings because we were 100% at school. R was able to track back Dad and begged him to rekindle his relationship with us or give us some money. Dad refused, but when some people started asking questions, awkward questions, at that time, Dad's business skyrocketed and he became a very wealthy man, but depended on his good reputation for that, so he obliged. For the next years, Dad ruled over our lives with an iron fist because he would threaten to kick us and or Mom out of our house, because he still owned it, if we didn't surrender to his demands, which included banning G and B to go to college, since he didn't approve their career choices. G ended up studying something he chose for her. Then, Dad had a heart attack, and that almost k'd him. Me and my siblings, and even my mom, rushed to his side. But his new wife, and at the time, 2 teenage daughters, didn't even show up once, because we were there anyway. This was a serious wake-up call for Dad. He begged for our forgiveness and made an almost 180-degree change. He gave our house to Mom, helped us every time we reached him without imposing himself, offered G a job in his business, and paid B's tuition. Dad also paid for our weddings, and when mine, ours, and G's kids came of age to go to elementary, B doesn't have kids, Dad paid for their school expenses, something he's going to do for all of his grandkids until each one graduates from college. And no, he will not impose his will on their choices. R got remarried a few years ago. His first wife cheated, and A, who already had 2 girls, and also R, another child. The problem is that for over 2 years, G has been saying that Dad should also pay for A's other kids' school expenses, because now that they are part of the family, it's only fair. The first time she told R and A, they apparently looked at her like she was crazy and said no, because the girl's dad pays for that, and he's very happy to do it. G didn't like it, and now every once in a while, she keeps saying that Dad needs to do it. Yesterday, she was talking to Mom over the phone and told her that if Dad is going to pay with money for what he did to us, it's only fair that we milk out of him as much as we can. Mom scolded her for saying that. They got in a fight. G hung up on Mom and called me, trying to find someone who would agree with her. When I told her that, frankly, she's being ridiculous, she got more angry, called me an a-hole, and hung up on me too. She sounded really hurt, and now I'm feeling very guilty. Am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole. G and A have a point, but your dad doesn't need to pay for his grand stepkids. They've got a father for that, and a stepfather. They're being cheapskates for pushing this matter onto your dad, who's been more than generous. If they keep pushing this, then it's pretty evident y'all will be using him as a cash cow. Best of luck. Not the a-hole. To be fair, after what your dad put you all through, it would certainly be decent of him to pay the tuition for his step-grandkids as well. However, he's absolutely under no obligation to do so, especially now if their father is paying for it. The whole situation seems odd. I mean, why is your sister angry at everyone on your brother's behalf? Does he agree with her and think your dad should pay for his stepkids as well? Not the a-hole. I get that she probably wants to milk your father dry because of the way he treated your family, especially by forcing G to choose a degree that she never originally wanted in the first place. Resentment is a mofo, and even harder to grapple with when you can't have the tools that therapy can give you. However, fact of the matter is, our stepkids have an involved father who financially supports them. They literally did not ask for this support from your father. They don't need or want it, so there's no reason to press for it. She is being ridiculous, and it sounds like she's trying to impose her will on R and A via their kids, like your father did, and it doesn't sound like she's realized it yet. I hope someone can share some sense into her, though. The year was 2001. 3 weeks to the wedding. My wedding had been 18 months in the making. I worked at a gas station, eatery, truck stop as a shift manager. On the odd times, I would get on as regular staff to cover shifts when needed. Weddings are money pits. I had been talking to the crew and managers for months that I would not accept requests for shift covers 3 days before and the week after the wedding. I worked my normal shift till the end day before the wedding though. That time frame of 3 weeks before is important. That's when it started. Cast. Me is me. Entitled Employee, EP. Maid of Honor, MOH. Bestie Managers, Manager 1 and Manager 2. I'm doing the countdown to the wedding. So many coworkers asking what was planned and how much was left. Another manager was also getting married right after we were. We planned stuff together and had a blast. The only dark cloud was one employee who went from me training her to work different areas to her working 1 day every 2 weeks because she always felt like not coming in. However, she felt that whomever covered her shift should pay her that day's wages. Entitled Employee was getting obnoxious about it too. Her parents kept harassing us because their precious wasn't getting a paycheck for not doing anything. Every day that Manager 2 and I needed off, the other was on the schedule. That way, our plans for the individual weddings were being done, but work didn't suffer from our extra time off. Entitled Employee took to calling out every time she was on schedule. By this point, she had to find her own replacement without help from managing staff. If an hourly employee was free and said yes, then that was fine, but they couldn't make overtime. If they didn't, she had to come in and cover herself. CMA. However, Entitled Employee tried hatching a plan. I should probably note that we were 24/7 and went full steam from 3 a.m. to midnight daily. As many people as we had on staff, we always needed extra hands on delivery days or inspections, etc. All the extra things like were every 2 days: food, gas, maintenance, non-perishables, cleaners, landscape, trash, recycling. All of it had to have a manager overseeing it. Most times, 3 or 4 outside contracts at once. Busy didn't even cover the crazy. When Manager number 2 and I had time off, Entitled Employee had her parents call in saying she was in the ER or had spent the night having seizures, all the way up to she was in the hospital getting ready for surgery. Something so dramatic that management had to juggle that missing time slot. With everyone either off those days so they didn't go into overtime, or everyone available already on the schedule. No one was free and had hours available, except myself and Manager 2. Manager 1 would have to call us in, knowing we were canceling appointments to plan our separate weddings. She had to have the DM and RM come in to help cover as well, so we could do something towards the weddings at least. Entitled Employee would not take common sense into account and show up later that same day. Dear God, I swear it's fact that she actually did this, claiming she was still suffering or the surgery didn't go well. She would have a note from a Dr. RX pad. She would be having a good old time, getting food, planning her day off to shop, get drunk, underage, go swimming, get high, etc. The best drama scenes came from her actual parents, coming in asking us why we were so A to their child and why we wouldn't put her on the schedule. As stated before, why weren't we paying her for the shift she should have worked but didn't? So Manager 2 and I worked it out. Those 3 weeks, we worked half her shift, 4.5 to 5 hours, and squeezed planning into the other half. We just gave up on the girl. Her work contract through the work EDU at her school stated she needed 30 hours a month or she was back in school all day. We finally cut her hours to that minimum, then coordinated with her counselor to make sure that she got them, 3 Saturdays a month. First Saturday she called me. She can't work. She's not in the state. No way home. Second Saturday she calls Manager 2. Her friend was in a horrible accident and refused to let go of her. The ER staff said friend's vitals crashed every time she tried to get loose. Third Saturday, she calls me and says that she overslept and everyone is gone. Someone took her car. She didn't know who or where. On a side note, school counselor was on the other line beating the girl's door down to give her a ride. No one was home. Day of the wedding. Bestie comes over and hauls my keister out of bed at 0:30, cause all the plans that she and my then soon-to-be hubs made need approval. 6 a.m. my phone rings. Bestie already stole it from me. She answered it with, "No, she can't do anything for you." Phone rings every 5 minutes, and Bestie is getting louder as she's being inventive with cursing like I've never heard. Several hours in and we're hungry. It's finally breakfast time. Brunch, really. So we pop into work. Entitled employee sees me out the store window in full hair and makeup. I'm with Bestie, trying to get our dresses in the car better so they don't wrinkle. Entitled employee hollers for Manager 1 and Manager 2, since I'm there to take her shift. Please, fasten your seatbelts, this didn't end well. RM was there too, but her face had to be scooped up off the floor. Bestie and I got our food to go, and she let the poop fly. My face had to be scooped up off the floor. Manager and Manager 2 blocked entitled employee from leaving the cash register area while it happened. I was the only person off that day. Entitled employee kept calling, wanting me to come into work. Everyone didn't know it was me she was calling, until she tried leaving when Bestie and I came in for food. Bestie kept repeatedly saying I was getting married that day. I was off to the passenger backside. Bestie's hubs drove us, hollering I refused her hours based on a previous engagement. Duh. I would not work for her. I would not give up my wedding time for her to go in later in the day and do it then. I would not allow her to replan my schedule for her benefit. Even Bestie's hubs was going off. His reaction is why my face went thunk. He is so zen. When he was in a severe accident, he pulled the other driver out to work on them while he was bleeding out till rescue got there. He was a paramedic. He never got worked up. I didn't think he knew how to cuss or get pissed. I was adding my own, trying to be calm, reasoning, but we kept talking over each other. Manager 1 was apocalyptic when she clued in. RM pulled entitled employee and Manager 1 into the office. Manager 2 took over the register. She was in tears. I had to hug her to calm her. If entitled employee did this to me, what would she do to Manager 2 on her wedding day? Bestie was hugged calm by her hubs. She was shaking, she was so mad. Entitled employee's school counselor was called in. This is how we not only saw entitled employees stopped from trying to ruin my and Manager 2's weddings. Manager 2's wedding was 10 days after mine, but also stopped entitled employee cold for breaking the law and committing medical fraud, which we didn't know for sure she was doing. Counselor was approached by entitled employee's mom after she'd taken entitled employee to that morning to work. To clarify, entitled employee's mom and counselor were tight friends since childhood. Mom had the doctor's RX pad she found. She knew it was for the doctor that did wellness checks at the schools. Experimental program back then. She thought maybe it had fallen into entitled employee's book bag during a checkup. Counselor came into our workspace, knowing the pad didn't fall into entitled employee's bag. It was reported to the police as stolen. Several pages from the pad were missing. She was there to collect entitled employee with the police. Everything fell apart on entitled employee. Then, she was arrested for so many things. The RM had to press charges since work had been given notes from the stolen pad. Manager 1 added harassment, stalking. Yes, we were stalked by entitled employee. Manager 2 was the next-door neighbor to my material unit at that time. Of myself and Manager 2 to that list. Bestie whipped out my phone as proof. Dude, it was a Nokia with Snake. There was no locking it. Of the last few months in phone calls. Other employees chimed in with conversations they'd had with entitled employee about her entitlement, her plans to ruin the weddings, how much she was getting away with, and how high and drunk she always bragged to be. Then, something I didn't know was a log brought out by Manager 1 of everything entitled employee was suspected of doing while at work. Just wow! I'm not sure who else was involved, but entitled employee was in juvie for a while, before being promoted after release to adult jail for selling her goods for drugs. Once we got Bestie calm enough, we left. By that point, we were going to be on time for the wedding, aka late in her and her hub's POV. We had to haul Keister, but we did see them putting her into cuffs in the car. She kept saying if I would have agreed to just take her shift, none of this would have happened. Girl was flying that day. Her folks showed up as we were leaving. I never did ask about them. I left to get married. Manager 2 went on full leave for 10 days when I got back, 'cause she deserved the downtime more than anyone else. She was married sans the drama of my wedding day. The RM kept Manager 2 and I out of the courtroom. Since it was such a disturbing and serious case, involving a minor, no one was privy to all the details. Trust me, you don't want to know. Only the absolutely essential people were involved. I'm still lost on some of it, but I never did want to find out the rest. I saw her a few years later pregnant and clean. Her fiancé was with her, but super protective when he knew who I was. She changed up info about how we were framing her. I walked off without saying anything. She was his problem, not mine. Holy crap! What does it take to get her fired there? Where I am, she would have been dismissed in short order. I couldn't have walked away with a straight face, a loud snort of laughter, and a "dude, you're ducked" would have been the minimum.